Dear Lauren and John Matthias, you don't know me, but I'm one of many members of the YouTube true crime community who have witnessed the rise of your channel, Hidden True Crime, and its subscribership largely through your coverage of the absolutely devastating murders of Charles and J.J. Vallow, Tylee Ryan, and Tammy Daybell. And now I am one of many viewers who feels extremely disappointed by your recent decision to make explosive public stalking accusations against another person to a 10,000 person chat of true crime enthusiasts that could not be held up in court. Before I get into my reasons, followed by some analysis and some suggestions for how to rehabilitate your damaged reputation, let me qualify myself a bit because I have a very unique perspective. Before I became a true crime YouTuber in 2021, I spent 25 years as a public relations executive for companies like Apple, Google, Twitter, Palm, Lucasfilm, and too many tech startups to count. During that time, I worked directly with Steve Jobs, George Lucas, the Google and Twitter founders, and many other high-profile figures. Part of my job was dealing with crises, such as what does Apple do when the batteries in their laptops start exploding? Or should we get back to the press when they contact us about some drama about Steve Jobs? I'm also a founding advisor to the Center for Humane Technology, which is at the center of the 2020 Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, in which I appeared for all of 2 seconds, but I'm much more proud of the work I put into the ideas at the center of that film. Not long after I started my YouTube channel, I became embroiled in drama that was not much different than yours. This led me to change my focus a bit into covering the litigious and toxic culture between YouTubers and true crime, especially when that litigation is launched off of the name of a true crime victim or their family. I also heavily covered Depp versus Heard and produced a very similar video to this one for Amber Heard after she gave a very ill-advised interview after the trial was over. It got over 300,000 views, so it's quite possible that you watched it. With all that said, that's where I was coming from when I tuned into your stream.
Hey, everyone.
Your 9-hour stream had an alarming title. It came from a YouTuber I trusted and valued as someone who never before came across as hyperbolic or dramatic, and I tuned in with an open and trusting heart. But as the stream progressed, I noticed the following major red flags, especially for someone who has covered countless court trials of people who went through heinous, brutal tragedies. You said that there was no protective order deeming the other person a stalker because you never went through with the full hearing. So you labeled someone a stalker over 400 times in a stream with no court determination. You said you didn't go through with the hearing because Law and Crime was going to stream it and you wanted to protect your child. And although I could understand your feelings about this, it was rather hypocritical considering your channel was built off of profiting from the very same thing. You played a voicemail from what sounded like an elderly lady and you called it threatening, and it contained no threat whatsoever. Then you played a few videos where you supposedly were being followed and stalked, but they were all in public places where you were also recording the other person. Those were my main red flags, and that left me feeling some kind of way. But when the full court documents came out, including the audio, your entire narrative was turned on its head. We learned that, in fact, the court had deemed that Law and Crime could not stream anything related to your child, and that the judge had already admonished you to a degree, saying that what they had seen so far was First Amendment speech. In addition, you said yourself that you decided you were going to own your narrative. Then, to add insult to injury, after your 9-hour live, you required people to pay for more details in your Patreon. Everything I described above, writ large, was a bad idea. Let me put my professional crisis PR hat on and explain. By using your large platform in the true crime space to profit off of calling someone a stalker before the courts ruled that way, you totally overestimated your brand equity and your social equity and alienated a core audience of people who truly value America's Constitution. You also opened the door to a major wave of scrutiny that is likely to last some time. Not at the same frenzy that it has for the last few days, but certainly at a low hum for the foreseeable future. That's the big picture. But let me walk this through step by step. You might be surprised to hear me say this because it's not about what happened in public, but it's vitally important. Your first mistake was saying things about people in private and expecting those things to stay private. Yes, it's very bad form for people to gossip about the private things you said about your brother's death, but they have the right to do that, and they have the right to make inferences about it as well. As hurtful and distasteful as that might be, that is not considered stalking. You also said some nasty things about people, including victims and families, that should just not have been said to anyone. So the first mistake was even saying those things at all, and saying those things in a way that could be produced publicly at a later date. But knowing you've done that for 6 years, what did you do? We'll get to that in a minute. Your second mistake was giving your password to people, then considering it stalking when they viewed private information behind that password. It's unfortunate that people will take advantage of having access to private information that you give them access to, but that is not hacking or stalking. Your third mistake, and these mistakes are not in any particular order, was getting too close to victims' families and treating them like family, but really using them for content and to bolster your brand. I'm sure you have true, authentic empathy and feelings for Lori Vallow Daybell's victims, but the most respectful and ethical thing you can do for them is give them a platform to speak when they want to speak, give the case awareness, and then keep a respectful distance rather than dropping their names and implying that they're like a member of your own family to promote your channel. These family members are in complete shock. Their heads are not really thinking right in the aftermath of their tragedies, and they shouldn't be expected to be able to discern whether they're being used and exploited by the hundreds of YouTubers and media outlets that are hounding them. It's up to us not to take advantage of their grief and their need for some kind of justice. We have no power to solve their problem, except to bring more awareness to their story. And it's wrong to lead them to believe they will get more out of us than that. I believe this is why Kay Woodcock was so hurt to hear you compare yourself to her brother, with whom she was so close and who was brutally murdered, and to hear you imply that she would agree with your comparison. That was beyond crossing boundaries and beyond the rights of your entitlement. This last mistake ties into a larger issue of tone deafness, an inability to read the room in terms of your place and the place of the victims in this true crime space. Let's put this in perspective, Lauren and John. The longest live on Colby Ryan's channel is 7.5 hours, and he is Lori's son. And he wasn't talking about himself that entire time. He was streaming Lori's trial. And in my view, he had more of a right than any media organization to stream that trial. And yet you've now done a 9-hour live and 2 more Patreon lives that people had to pay for. That was all about you, where you are calling someone a stalker and you are saying you are being bullied by a group of mean girls. And yet you don't have a court ruling that says they're stalkers and mean girls. Now, let's get to why you were calling them mean girls in the first place. It really comes down to this. You panicked that they were going to release 6 years worth of private messages, where we are now learning that you were saying meanie poopy things about people, including victims' families. You showed us your panic attack, where you were apparently suicidal. But it wasn't because people were approaching your window or repeatedly contacting you or sending you death threats. No. It was because you were worried about these people finding out what you said. You were worried that people writ large in the community would find out about the real you. This was a really critical moment in this story. This is where a person meets a fork in the road. They're in crisis. They know something is going to become public, and they need to decide, am I going to be honest or am I going to keep being deceptive? And what you decided to do was to keep being deceptive and use the court to do that. That was your next colossal mistake, because I think you did not have a solid stalking case. And quite honestly, if you walked into that courtroom thinking you did have a solid stalking case, you have no business carrying on a true crime court trial coverage channel or doing analysis. Sure, stream the court trial, but not analysis. I'm sorry, you just don't have a right to do that if you think you had a stalking case. Honestly, I don't think I'm telling you something you don't know by now. It's patently obvious by the major backlash you've gotten in the community and from important members of Lori's family, people you took for granted, that this was all a very, very bad idea. So let me tell you as a professional what you should have done and what you should do moving forward. You can take or leave my advice, but please know that I offer it as a person who truly cares about the careful and ethical treatment of victims' families, and that when I was paid to do this stuff, I was paid very, very well. First, as I said before, you should have never said disparaging things about people that you did not expect to ever be public. If you say something negative about someone to another person, have the guts to say it to that person in private at around the same time, so they won't be surprised to hear it from another person or to see it publicly if it comes out. But let's say you're sitting on a buildup of 6 or 10 or even 20 years of horrible things you've said about people, and you're worried about those things getting out. Rather than trying to get out in front of it by discrediting people who are threatening to put them out and lie about them in court and tie up the court's time and taxpayer dollars, go privately to all the people you talked shit about. Tell them what you said, apologize for that, give no excuses, and do not expect them to accept that apology. When you do that, you take the blackmail off the table. You take the air out of the balloon. You maintain your integrity. And even if that nasty stuff comes public at some point, you know that the people you talked nasty about have no reason to say that they were surprised. Even if they say they were surprised, you now have proof in some way, shape, or form that they shouldn't be surprised. There's a much smaller chance for a big public backlash. This applies even if the nastiness is about an affair or something else very salacious like that. Yes, that will take time. Yes, it will be very uncomfortable. Yes, you will have to swallow a lot of pride. But knowing what you know now and how you feel now, don't you think that would be a much better solution than losing several thousand subscribers and an entire community's trust in your brand and your integrity as a quote-unquote journalist? So what to do moving forward? Let me give you the same advice I would give to any paying client, and very similar advice I gave to Amber Heard in my video, which I have no reason to believe she listened to or took to heart, but she's largely following, to be honest. If you can take the financial hit without putting your entire family in poverty, take a very long break from YouTube. At the very least, take a long enough break to reevaluate yourself, your actions, your priorities, and evaluate even if you want to continue as you are on your YouTube channel. If you do come back, when you do come back right. Come back authentic. Come back and really be the person you say you are. Do not address this situation again. There is no cleanup to be had anymore. If you dredge up this situation again, I guarantee you will see another very strong wave of backlash. And it doesn't seem like your brand can withstand that. Or you, for that matter. There will be people who want to interview you about this topic. They may even offer to pay you. Don't do it. More backlash. There will be trolls on your channel who try to trigger you into a reaction by telling you things that aren't true to get you to respond. Don't engage. Ignore. If you go back to covering trials, especially live, and going to the hearing yourself, Don't expect to be everybody's best friend again. Don't expect everybody to accept you into their arms again. Remember your journalistic ethics. Just put your head down, do the work that made you popular around here, and keep your priorities straight. With time, people will come around, but you have to show consistency and integrity. Because as you know, the true crime space is very transitional. New audiences flow through here all the time. About 30% of our audience sticks around and can remember everything we did, but many of them will forgive our mistakes if we don't repeat them. If you keep making the same mistakes, they will remember that you keep making the same mistakes, and that will become part of your brand. Maintain a consistent dedication to covering cases based on facts and evidence with a care for the victims without crossing boundaries and talking shit about the families, and do that for a consistent period of time, and your reputation will rebound. But I guarantee you, if you keep trying to clean this up or change the story or disparage more people or rope more people into white knighting for you, you will invite another tirade of backlash, because we do not tolerate it when people are accused of crimes with no evidence. Even more importantly, it is intolerable to see true crime YouTubers who build their channels off the backs of specific true crime families to then compare their experiences to those true crime families. Full stop. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a very safe and fun Halloween, and peace out.